Hi, everybody. I'm not able to be at school today, and so I wanted to make a quick video that hits everything that you need to know about the American Revolution and to give you guys a comprehensive review of the material that we've covered thus far. All right. We take a look at our standards here. Pull this up for us. All right, for the standards, a quick standard review of the things that we haven't hit yet. For standard 3A, really what we have to know is that the end of the Anglo-French imperial competition laid the groundwork for the American Revolution. All right, that's what we need to know. We need to know that all that mercantilism, the war that took place over mercantilism between England and France, i.e. the French and Indian War, and the way that they wrote that Treaty of Paris in 1763, how that's going to cause the American Revolution. Does it in a couple different ways. One, England now has a tremendous amount of land out west that they don't really have a good idea of how to manage. We talked about Pontiac's rebellion. We also talked about the Proclamation Line of 1763 in there. All right. The other issue that it's going to create is, remember, England is in tremendous amount of debt. And because of that war debt, even in victory, it's going to lead to, bring this down here so I can mess with it. And so, like I said, even in victory, that debt's going to be significant, and they're going to start pressuring the colonies because under that guise of mercantilism, the colonies are here to serve the mother country. All right. So we've got that taken care of. We also talked a lot about colonial responses to British actions. All right. When they passed the Proclamation of 1763, it upset us. We felt that we had right to the Ohio River Valley because of our actions in the French and Indian War. And England basically said no. So there's your English action and colonial response. England passed a Stamp Act, again trying to generate revenue. We pitch a fit, have the Stamp Act Congress. The Intolerable Acts get passed here because, there we go. The Intolerable Acts get passed here, and they happen because of our behavior, if you will, at the Boston Tea Party. Because of the Intolerable Acts, they're trying to coerce us out of rebellion. England is I'm sorry, not England. The colonies, because of the Intolerable Acts, are going to move from the COCs to the Continental Congresses. And that's when the movement, at least the organization, the groundwork, if you will, of the American Revolution takes place. All right. We've also talked about the importance of T-Pain's common sense. All right. We talked about how that gives the radical Whigs their voice, that encourages people to start discussing independence, and again, regardless of whether you are for or against independence, now people are talking about it, and because we're talking about it, it's real. All right. Other things that we've talked about, we spent a significant amount of time talking about the language, organization, and sources of our Declaration of Independence here. All right. We talked about the Enlightenment thinkers and their influence. We talked about who all was on that quote unquote Committee of Five, and how it all really boiled down to Thomas Jefferson being the guy who pieces the ideas of Locke and the Committee of Five all together for the Declaration. Today, what we're going to hit is B, C, and D. We will talk about Ben Franklin. We'll talk about the Marquis and the attempt to get them or to get the French in as an alliance. We'll talk about our boy Dubs here as a military leader. We've already created the Continental Army. We will cross the Delaware today. We'll mention Valley Forge. and then we'll conclude everything with the Battle of Yorktown and the subsequent Treaty of Paris. All right? So cool. Let's do it. Today is just war. Okay? Today is just war. And for war, and this is the way that all war works in my classroom, I don't like to lose. And so I'll hit turning points in and turning points of the war. Now, there's a difference there. A turning point in the war is simply a momentum shift. The turning point of the war is when big momentum is now on our side, and we're going to ride that wave of confidence all the way to the finish line. Okay, we've already looked at this. These are the 5 invasion hiccups, and they're good to understand how even on paper where there is incredible disparity between the Continental Army and the British military, how we were able to win. And again, I point to these as the major things that provided a hiccup for England. All right. Now, we've already checked this out, so let's keep rolling. Let's talk about our first battle, okay? First battle really wasn't a battle. It's more of an example of a riot. We've already talked about it in class with Lexington and Concord. Remember, after the First Continental Congress writes that Declaration of Rights that says, give us the freedom to govern ourselves, tax ourselves, and run our own economy, and we will bow down and pledge allegiance to the crown. That didn't work. England's bent out of shape over that thing, and so they go to Lexington to arrest people and Concord to seize weapons. Because of the efforts of individuals like Paul Revere, and there were several other people that took part. P-Rev, he just gets all the love. Because of that, because of what they were doing in terms of an early alert system, the Minutemen were ready. All right. Now, numbers here don't matter. But I like to give numbers anyway. For the Redcoats, going into Lexington and Concord, trying to flex the muscles of the Administration of Justice Act, Great Britain went in with about 1,500 men, of which 73 were killed, 174 were wounded, and 53 were captured. For the combined militiamen, the combined Minutemen, if you will, at Lexington and Concord, it gave us a total force of somewhere, again, this is combined force of somewhere around 3,800, of which 49 were killed, 38 were wounded, and 0 were captured. What ends up happening is when they go out to Lexington and then go out to Concord and end up fighting in both areas, they're going to end up retreating back to Boston. Those Minutemen are going to then surround Boston. Okay, they surround Boston and keep the Redcoats within Boston. Now, it's these angry farmers who are essentially rioting. They're raging at this point. This is who is going to make up Washington's Continental Army, right? Now, when we look at Lexington and Concord, we look at it as a great victory, right? England says that was a cheap shot. They weren't expecting a fight. They thought that they were going to go and arrest people, seize weapons, and justice served, right? Instead, they got sucker punched, and what we're going to see is England is going to bring the heat. Okay, they're going to bring the heat. They are going to start bringing a tremendous amount of redcoats over because they realize, all right, now it's a fight. All right. And England's going to start kicking our butts. Okay, they're gonna start kicking our butts. Morale gets really, really low. Okay, morale gets really, really low, and moving into the end of '76, it's not looking too good. All right, one of the major turning points in the war, and again, turning points in are momentum shifts. Okay, one of the first big ones is going to be here at Trenton. Okay, it's gonna be here at Trenton. One of the things we didn't mention in class about gentleman's warfare is that gentleman's warfare respects scarcity. And because they respect scarcity, they don't fight in the winter. So as soon as the snow starts to fall, wherever the redcoats are, they're gonna stop and they're gonna camp out for winter, okay? Now, England had been fighting in the greater Massachusetts, greater Boston area for most of the beginning of the war. Now, the organization of the rebellion was no longer in Boston. It was now in Philadelphia, all right, which is down here in Pennsylvania. And so what we saw is the British started moving from Massachusetts down on its way en route to Philadelphia. And again, the idea is if you can remove the brain, if you can remove the organization of the rebellion, the war should be over, all right? Now, the problem for the British is snow started to fall right when they were in New Jersey, okay? In fact, they were in this city right here, Trenton. Okay, and so when snow started to fall, boom, the redcoats stopped. Quite literally, all they had to do was go across, let's get this out of the way, across the Delaware River, really just down, a couple bends of the river, and you would be in Philly. But again, they respect scarcity in gentleman's warfare. All right. Now, so they get locked down, or they lock themselves down in Trenton here. This is where Dubs is going to make a move. He understands that they're not moving, and so what he's going to do on December 25th, 1776, Dubs is going to take a Continental Army, a force of about 2,400 men, and he's going to cross the Delaware River. All right, we get this iconic picture here of Dubs, going through the icy river on Christmas, right? Now, this is a totally savage move, all right? This is a totally savage move to fight not only in the middle of winter, but on Christmas. Now, as Dubs crossed the Delaware and starts to make his way down to, again, Trenton here, he comes up on some Hessians, which are German mercenaries here in Birmingham. All right, he dispatches, or he takes out, I should say, the Hessians here. But at this point, he's going to split his flanks. All right, because his worry is, what if some of the Hessians made their way down to Trenton? Okay, and so what he's going to do is he's going to split his forces so he has this double-pronged attack coming in on Trenton. What he does right before he enters Trenton is makes a third-pronged attack, so coming in like a fork on Trenton. All right. Now, no Hessians ever made it back to Trenton to alert anybody, and so while the redcoats were sitting back with their boots off and their feet up by the fire, thinking about, I don't know, the things you think about Christmas, right? Sugar plum fairies dancing in your head. And suddenly they hear a commotion outside and they get all excited. Oh, great, it's St. Nick, he's coming. But instead, well, bam, it's Dubs kicking down the door, taking names. For Washington and the Continental Army, like I said, they approached Trenton with about 2,400 men, 2 killed, 5 wounded, 0 wounded. Bam! Right? For England, they had about 1,520 people hunkered down in Trenton, of which 22 would be killed, 86 would be wounded, 906 captured. Now, Dubs is really going to show some thought here. A savage rioter as myself, right? Would probably have just slaughtered 906 people and sent their heads back to England with like little notes in their mouth saying, yeah, come get us. We told you want some, come get some, and then give them that crazy out, right? But Dubs holds them, okay? He holds them, he doesn't kill them, because again, gentleman's warfare allows for trading of soldiers, even being a traitor. Benedict Arnold, he got a couple mentions in the debates the other day. That was seen as acceptable and normal, and today we look at that and say, you're a coward. You're a coward for doing that. But that was okay. And so he's got 906 bargaining chips. Now, it's a big victory for Washington and the colonial forces. However, England's going to say that Washington cheated. All right, they're going to say that Washington cheated because he attacked on Christmas Day. Shout out 706 Wrestling. All right. Now, at this point, it is a morale boost. Let's go back. Trenton was a pretty good morale boost. It made us feel good because it's at least for us a meaningful victory. But again, we cheated there. We cheated. Where we are going to get the turning point of the war, and again, turning point of the war is that big momentum shift. That's when Big Mo's on our side and we're riding that wave until the last nail is hammered into the coffin, right? That turning point is Saratoga, okay? Saratoga, England and we're talking September and October of 77 at this point. England showed a little bit of disorganization. They were again, coming from Massachusetts through New England down into New York and making their way to Philly. They kind of had some disorganization show up. Half of the leadership, again, moving their way across New England. Some of them wanted to go north and take out Quebec. Others wanted to go south and take out Philly. And so what they ended up doing is splitting their forces. It's never a good look to split your forces. All right, never a good look. And it benefits us because the British and the colonial forces engage in the forest here in Saratoga. All right. Now, fighting in a scene like this is gonna benefit he who fights guerrilla war style. Okay, which is us. We can hide behind trees. We can even hide up in trees, and all pew pew at people who are posted up and saying, "Come out and fight us like men, like gentlemen. Get out of here!" Right? Now, at Saratoga, again, it is the turning point of the war. And the reason why is numbers and who wins, right? As far as the numbers go, both the Redcoats and the Continental Army had similar numbers. Both had forces at about 6,600. For the U.S., we lost 30 men, 100 wounded, 0 captured. For the British, 300 killed, 370 wounded, 5,900 captured. All right, and that's huge. That's huge. One, it's a morale boost. Okay, it's a morale boost. But the bigger reason why this is the turning point of the war, the reason why this thing is important, is because it proves we can win a fair fight. Okay, we can win a fair fight, and that's a big move because after Saratoga, when we prove ourselves, France joins in on our side. Now, during this all the war, we've had two guys, Ben Franklin and John Adams, over in France, trying to get the French on board with us as we were fighting. Simultaneously, you've got the Frenchman, the Marquis de Lafayette. He's over here. He's a Frenchman who's over here fighting. And so there's interest there, and there's a relationship that's being built. I love the thought of John Adams and Ben Franklin traveling together. John Adams is he really is one of the finer in terms of character individuals from this time period. But man, he is so by the books and he is so stuffy. All right. I mean, he is going to do everything. He's going to make sure that all the T's are crossed and the dots or the J's are dotted. And I mean, he is just, a meticulous dude. Meanwhile, you got Ben Franklin, who, I know we look at Big Ben and we go, man, like he's a big fat dude with a mullet. But that big fat man with a mullet was an absolute 1700 sex symbol. He was a celebrity. Women wanted to be with him. Men wanted to be like him. He was like, a 1920s Babe Ruth, if you will. They are both going to use, they're going to use their well-defined skill sets, let's call that, to convince the French royal family that they should join in on our side. At Saratoga, we prove that we can win a meaningful battle, and boom, they're in. And the French are going to bring a trained army. They're going to bring a navy, which is really going to help cripple the British blockades. Okay. Now, once Saratoga goes down and the French come in, England kind of changes their overall strategy. The thought here is what England really wants from the colonies is resources, and most of the resources and most of the people who are remaining loyal to the British Empire are south of the Maryland, Virginia line, south of the Chesapeake Bay, if you will, right? And so the thought is, well, we'll create a line. We, the British, will create a line here and hold the South, all right? The thought is that New England and the middle colonies were so diverse, comparatively to each other, that they wouldn't be able to get along, and they would end up, fighting each other. And what a perfect time for England to swoop back in and divide and conquer, right? So the thought is, let's hold from essentially Virginia down, okay? What they're going to do, where the British have a lot of support, are places like Charlestown, like Georgetown, like Wilmington, all right? Where they don't have a lot of support is up here in Appalachia, okay? The mountain folks, they're a different breed, right? You know what you do when you hear banjo music, right? The redcoats and the mountain folk, Appalachia, they don't mesh well. And when the redcoats go up into the mountains and try to pick up some allies, it's going to backfire on them. And where we really see it backfiring is the Battle of Kings Mountain. Okay, Kings Mountain right there. This is where you're going to have the Green Mountain Boys, all right, come down and really show out. Okay, they're really going to show out here at Kings Mountain. Battle of Kings Mountain pops off October 7th, 1780. And we're going to do it we're going to take the dub here with inferior numbers. The British had about 1,200 men. We had about 900. But again, this is our backyard, right? These are our mountains. They don't know where they're at. We know how to fight in them thar hills, right? I feel like this beard's fitting for them thar hills. Anyway, by the numbers for the U.S. forces, like I said, we had about 900, of which 29 were killed, 58 wounded, 0 captured. For the Redcoats, 1,200 men, 290 killed, 163 wounded, 668 captured. All right. This is a big dub. Now, at this point, England's saying, all right, forget the mountains. Those are a bunch of hicks. They have no value anyway. And so, again, the idea is let's hold that line. Now, they leave these people alone. Reinforcements are supposed to be coming up from the 3 major ports here, all right? But what they never did is they never took out, our hillbilly friends up here. And so the Green Mountain Boys and those veterans of Kings Mountain are going to come down out of the mountains and start disrupting the supply chains, Okay, they're going to disrupt the supply chains. The redcoats are going to get too far spread out here, and with now the Continental forces and the French forces all kind of piling in, the redcoats are going to have to retreat down to this peninsula right here, Yorktown. Okay. Yorktown is where we're going to finish up this war. Yorktown is where it's game over. A fantastic former colleague of mine used to say, Yorktown, hands up, it's like a Y. Hands up, don't shoot, right? This is where it ends, okay? This is where it ends. Yorktown is the end of the war. All right. Cornwallis was the British general. Lord Cornwallis with the traitor Benedict Arnold are going to end up retreating to Yorktown. We can see everywhere there is a British square. It is surrounded by American and French squares. We got them totally surrounded. Okay. At Yorktown, by the numbers, England had about 8,980 men in Yorktown, of which 309 were killed, 376 wounded, 8,007 were captured. Between the Americans' Dubs and the French Rochambeau, a combined force of about 20,600. So we finally have numbers in a numbers game, of which 92 were killed, 150 wounded, 0 captured. On October 18th, 1781, boom, Lord Cornwallis surrenders. Okay, Lord Cornwallis surrenders. All right, and the war is over. All right, the war technically, not really even technically, it technically ends at the Treaty of Paris in 83, but the last major battle, so to speak, is going to be 81 here, okay? October 18th, 1781 to be specific. Now, the Treaty of Paris, 1783, we're going to send 3 guys over to negotiate this thing with them. We're going to send John Jay. We'll talk a lot about John Jay here in the next week when we get into the Article 3, the legislative branch of the Constitution. We're also going to send over Ben Franklin and John Adams. Okay, those are the 3 that we're going to send over to Paris to negotiate the Treaty of Paris 1783. Per this treaty, we can see, first off, that England must recognize the United States as a new nation. All right, we are a new nation with the western boundary of the Mississippi. Right? Actually, Mississippi goes this way. Let's not get into the Missouri River here quite yet. But yeah, the Mississippi is our western boundary. Other things that we get, England gives Florida to Spain. They're going to give Florida to Spain. England's also going to give colonies in Africa and the Caribbean to France. What England will be able to keep here is what we consider modern day Canada. Okay, but the United States is a new nation with clearly some disputed borders. All right, and we'll have to take care of that. But the war's over. We're a new nation. November 24th, 1783 is when the last of the British troops leave. So that really is like our Independence Day, right? November 24th, 1783. We should celebrate that. As for all of our, once upon a time terrorists, they have now gone from colonial terrorists to American heroes because that's how reality is created, right? And so all these dudes, we debated with all of them. They're now our heroes, and we love them in this country. Now, that's everything from the American Revolution. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure, oh God, I feel like my son now. Make sure you smash the like button. Comment, subscribe, make me trend. Quiz on the end of the week. Peace out, guys.